Hello everyone, welcome back, and today in this video I wanted to talk about the most promising players that we saw during FC Barcelona's preseason tour in the United States, and I was very impressed with the way that Barcelona collectively played, but individually as well. I think there were some standout performances, and so I wanted to talk about those players in this video and basically go through it and give my thoughts on their preseason as well as talk about if they're ready to make that jump to the first team, and so I wanted to talk about all of that today. And the first player that I want to talk about, unsurprisingly, we all know it's going to be Pau Victor, because this preseason, it was his. I think he was the standout performer in almost every single game. He had the 2 man of the matches in the first 2 games, and also had an assist in the AC Milan game, but not just the goal against City, not just the brace against Madrid, but his overall play this entire preseason. It was so intelligent. It was so nice to have, no offense to Lewandowski, so nice to have a number 9 that was unique. He was making different runs, and his movement off the ball was great. I think his layoffs were nice. He was making the right choice every single time. It seemed like he knew exactly what he should be doing. And I think Hansi Flick was also very impressed with the way that Pau Victor played. His layoffs, his passing, his movement, all of that was great. And I don't think we could have really asked much more from him, because he took the goal against City very well. Against Madrid, he was just in the right place, right time, making good runs off the ball. And then AC Milan, I think that was a class assist, to pass it off to Lewandowski, but also to make that run into space off Rafinha's pass. It was intelligent. And I think Pau Victor, I think he impressed everyone. And I don't think he can play for Barcelona B, because his age limit, I think he's 23 now, and he can't go to the B team. So he's going to be in the first team, and I think Hansi Flick, he was very impressed with the way that Pau Victor played during this preseason. And it was also nice to see he had that versatility to play as a number 9 in the first game against City, and then also on the right. And that's going to be helpful. I don't think he's going to be playing much on the right, because you have both Lamine Yamal and Rafinha. So when both of them are healthy, Pau Victor is not going to be starting over them, you wouldn't think. But as a backup number 9, I think he can be very efficient in that position. Also on the left, especially if Nico Williams does not join Barcelona, he could be playing in that position. Maybe as well as an attacking midfielder, off of the number 9 if Lewandowski is going to be starting. So I think Pau Victor is going to be getting minutes next season, especially, like I said, before Dani Olmo is maybe fit to be starting games for Barca. I'm not sure exactly his levels of fitness. Maybe he would be ready for the first game in La Liga. But, when Barca are not fully healthy, I think Pau Victor can definitely be one of the names that you write on the team sheet. And I think he can be getting starts this season. And overall, he was definitely the standout performer for me during the preseason. I was very impressed with him, and I'm excited to see how Hansi Flick uses him next season. And the next player that I wanted to talk about, also unsurprisingly, is Marc Casado, because I think everyone saw how good he is, so there's no surprises that we're also talking about him. He was the player with the most minutes for Barca this preseason, and I think Hansi Flick saw how effective he was off the ball. And so for Hansi Flick, with the intensity that he wants to bring to matches, I think Marc Casado is going to be a very important player for Barca. And especially in the first month or so, when some of the midfielders are out injured, Marc Casado can definitely be starting games. And if we learn anything from last season, I think Gavi, the work that he does off the ball, he's the heart of the team. And I think when he was injured, that's really when Barca's season started to go very much downhill. And Pedri, Frenkie de Jong, and Gundogan, they would start together in the midfield. And some games, like the game against Atletico Madrid, I thought that was a very good performance from them. That was incredible. They had so much of the ball, and they were so dominant. But then in those big games, when you're maybe not seeing as much of the ball, defensively, they just looked lost. And it just didn't look like they had that presence to go 100% into tackles, to win the ball back in difficult areas of the pitch. And Marc Casado, he can be that player. I see a lot of Gavi in him as well. That, Gavi and Marc Casado, they don't really need that much of the ball. I think they do give it to other players who maybe are just a little bit more creative in their areas of the pitch, but they're so important when Barca don't have the ball. And I think that's really the area where Barca have struggled, because, they can have 70% possession, but then they get countered. They don't have players tracking. Frenkie de Jong, not good enough going back. Pedri as well, that's not one of his strengths. Gundogan, not one of his strengths either. And so Marc Casado, I think he's going to be a very important player for Barca, especially with the midfielders that they have out injured to begin the season. So Marc Casado, I was very impressed with him, and I think his future was a little bit uncertain given the fact that Xavi didn't seem to really count on him last season because he wasn't giving him very many minutes. And so it was possible that he was going to leave, but after that preseason, there's no way that he leaves. Of course, he renewed his contract, and I think he is going to get a lot of minutes under Hansi Flick. And I think he's one of those players, like someone like Fermin Lopez, that I think he can become an important player for Barca next season. So I'm very excited to see how well he does, because during the preseason, I think he was great. His work off the ball specifically, you just have to appreciate all the effort that he gives every single match. And the next player, and I'm guessing you're not going to be surprised by this one either, is Marc Bernal, because I think he was incredible this preseason. I'll be completely honest, I didn't get to see the majority of the Milan game because I was with family, but against City and Madrid, he started both those games alongside Marc Casado, and I really liked that double pivot. I think sometimes maybe on the ball they weren't as dominant. I think they just weren't showing to the ball as much and maybe giving their defenders as many options to play the ball forward. But I'm not really surprised by that because Marc Casado and Marc Bernal, I mean, it's just a young and inexperienced midfield. But I think there's so much promise there. And Marc Bernal, I think every single time he got on the ball, he looked so calm and composed. And a lot of people do see those Busquets comparisons. And it's difficult not to say that, yeah, you see shades of the player that Busquets was because he was just so calm and composed on the ball, and his passing, his one-touch passing was great. And also the lanky build, yes, I understand that. So, yeah, I was very impressed with Marc Bernal, and I do think he has a big future at Barcelona. Maybe it might be a little bit too early to start him in the midfield. We'll see. I mean, if Hansi Flick does it, I would definitely respect the risk, and I hope that would pay off because I think Bernal has a ton of talent. But I don't know, if he can come in and be the starting defensive midfielder. I think that would be a lot to ask. But what we saw in the preseason, he was so good. I think on the ball, that's the presence that you want. That's the presence that you want in Barcelona's team. And alongside Casado, I think the work that they were both doing off the ball was great. Yeah, I was really impressed with Bernal. I think he had so many good touches. His passing was very good. And he was doing exactly what you want from a defensive midfielder. I think some people said he really wasn't doing anything fancy, but I mean, exactly. That's what you want from a defensive midfielder. Busquets was a completely different. I mean, you can't compare them because he was very fancy in the way that he did things himself. But it's not like he was making crazy passes every single. I mean, he was playing it simple, and that I think is what Barcelona really needs. And Bernal, I think he can definitely do that. I would like to see him get adapted to the first team slowly. Maybe not throw him in the deep end right away. But I honestly think he would be ready to start games in La Liga if that's what Hansi Flick wants to do. But I could see him definitely being, more on Barca Athletic and on the youth team so far. But then eventually I can definitely see him getting some minutes in the first team this season. And the next player that I wanted to talk about was Alex Volley because I was very interested with the way that Hansi Flick had utilized him because it was very obvious. Every single time you watched him, he was heavily left-footed. And to play him as a right back, it was interesting. I basically compared it to the way that Hector Fort was played on the left, that it was nice because it opened up different angles that you wouldn't see with someone. Like, if he was playing on the left, he wouldn't have the same angles that he had when he was on the right. I think defensively, it just looked a little bit awkward because he's just not used to defending on that side. Maybe some people will say it's just... No, I think it's different. I played left back. It was more difficult for me to defend on that side, just with the way that your body wants to shift. So Alex Volley, defensively, I think he would definitely look a lot more comfortable on the left. But as a right back, I think in that game against Madrid, he had two beautiful crosses. The first one to Lewandowski, who then passed it to Pau Victor. Passed it, it ended up being a goal because of Alex Volley's beautiful ball. And then that Trivela pass, through ball low on the box to Pau Victor. That was great. So I was very impressed with the way that Alex Volley played. I don't think he would be played on the right. I'm just talking through it. I mean, in terms of the right backs that Barca have, Koundé is definitely going to be playing there, you would think. Hector Fort is there. Julian Araujo. So those are three right backs. So would you play Alex Volley, who's... I think he's always been a left back. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but I always thought he was going to be a backup left back for Alejandro Balde. So it's interesting seeing him being played on that side. But, I mean, maybe Hansi Flick, he just liked having a left-footed right back on that side because he can open up different angles and the passes that he can make, yeah, they're different. But I mean, with his left foot, he was great. And sometimes they're just very one-footed players that still work very well. I mean, there's nothing against that. So, yeah, Alex Volley, I was very impressed with him. I don't know if he's really going to be getting that many minutes as a right back this season, but I'm not sure. I mean, I would think, Hector Fort would be the backup right back, and then Julian Araujo as well, unless he goes on loan again. I would think he would be another backup right back. So I feel like he could definitely be the backup left back, though, because right now it's just Alejandro Balde. Hector Fort can also play on that side, as we saw last season, and then that's it. I mean, maybe Mikal Faye and Inigo Martinez could also play in that left back position, but you would think that Alex Volley would be the backup left back. So maybe in that Milan game he did play in that position, but I just saw him on the right this preseason, and I was impressed with him in that position. So I'd like to see him as a left back. That was interesting, but I was impressed with the player that he was, and to be played on your non-dominant side and perform that well, I was impressed with the way that he played this preseason. And then another player that honestly surprised me a lot was Pablo Torre. I don't think he played in that Milan game, but in those first two games, I think he had some great touches, some great layoffs. I think as an attacking midfielder, that's a pretty stacked position. I'm going to be honest, it's probably going to be difficult for him to get game time there, especially with the fact that Dani Olmo is basically confirmed to Barcelona. So if he's playing there, Fermin Lopez, maybe Pedri as well in that position. I don't think Pablo Torre is going to be getting that many minutes, but I was impressed with him. He scored a goal in the closed door friendly, and then also scored against City. I think he did very well, and not just the goals, of course, but he did take them very well. Gotta be honest with that. But not just the goals. I think some of his touches, his passes were good. And I liked those turns that he made in the box, because sometimes, when you're facing your own goal and you're getting the ball to your feet and there's a defender behind you, I think some people maybe panic, they lose the ball. Pablo Torre, he was either taking the foul or getting by them with a really good touch. So I was impressed with Pablo Torre definitely this preseason. I don't know if he's going to be getting that many minutes under Hansi Flick. And he did go on loan to Girona, and I don't think he also got very many minutes there because Girona were playing so well. So it's interesting. His situation is interesting. I'm interested to see what Hansi Flick does with Pablo Torre, and if he counts on him and wants him to stay at Barca, or maybe suggests him to go out on loan. But I was impressed with the way that he played, and I think some people forgot about him a little bit because Barca spent $5 million from, I think, Racing Club from Spain. I don't remember exactly, and people were really excited about him. I think set pieces, that's always something that he's been a specialist at, but going to be interested to see how he's used next season. It's possible that he goes out on loan, but I think this preseason overall, he did very well. Some more players this preseason and also in the first month of the season that I'm excited to see more of would be Hector Fort. I think he did play a bit during this preseason. I think he was pretty solid overall, but last season, he looked great. I think he proved that he was able to compete at the top level already, even being he was 17 when he came on and was playing on his non-dominant side as a left back. He did very good, so I think he will be in the first team next season. Julian Araujo, I didn't see him play that much this preseason, which is maybe a little bit worrying for his future because the only time that he started was in that game against City, and he was as a right winger, which that's definitely not his best position. I think defensively, he's very good. And so when you're coming up against a good 1v1 winger, it'd be nice to have him as a backup option. And, if Koundé ever gets injured, if maybe he has to slide into center back, it'd be nice to have Julian Araujo. So I hope we get to see more of him. And from what I heard, he had a pretty good loan spell at Las Palmas, so yeah, I hope Barca do keep him, but didn't see that much from him this preseason. Macau Faye as well. I really like him as a player, and I saw that Barca had received some offers again from other clubs. I think it was Lens and Monaco as well. I hope Barca don't even think about selling him because I think he does have a lot of promise. I didn't really watch that much of Barca Athletic, but from the highlights that I had seen, and just overall, I think his touches are great. He did miss that penalty. Hopefully he doesn't take that very harsh because it's just preseason. Doesn't matter, but it's good practice to miss and then know you don't want to do that again. So, yeah, Macau Faye, I was impressed with him, but we didn't really get to see that much of him. Only like 10 to 15 minutes, at the last part of the game. So I would have liked to see more, but I understand there's a lot of competition. So I do get him not coming on, but I think he does have a lot of potential, and I think Barca could definitely use him as a backup left back, backup center back at the start of this season. Especially if some players get injured. I mean, Araujo's going to be out. So it'd be nice to keep him at the club. I definitely don't want them to sell him or send him out on loan. It'd be nice to keep him at the club, and hopefully Hansi Flick does rate him pretty highly. And then also the Fernandez cousins, I think Guilla Fernandez and Tony Fernandez, they were pretty good this preseason as well. I think I saw some good moments, and hopefully they continue to progress in Barcelona's youth stages, and hopefully at some point they make it to the first team. But overall, I was definitely very impressed with Barcelona youngsters in this preseason. And as always, thank you very much for watching my video. I do appreciate it, and I hope you all have enjoyed this preseason from Barca. I was impressed with the way that they played, and I'm excited. I think Hansi Flick, he's definitely brought a new energy to the club, and to all the fans, I think they all feel it as well. So it's exciting. It's exciting times for Barca, and who knows if Nico Williams is going to join. It doesn't seem likely now, but Barca, they did sign Dani Olmo. So that's a new player, and I'm excited to watch. And so, yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching my video. VISCA BARCA as always. See you all later. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.